Greetings and welcome to Gnodcast with Gnod founding members Paddy Shine and Chris Haslam. Gnod bless. All right. Annett Tomporowski. Did I say that correct?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Annett, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you? Thanks for inviting me.
No, thanks for coming along. Thanks for coming to chat to us. Welcome to the Gnodcast.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited.
Cool. So, Annett, give us a little bit of background on yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, okay. My name's Annett. I'm from Germany. You can probably hear it on my accent. And at the moment, I live close to Weimar. I used to live in Manchester, though, where I met you guys.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's been a long time ago. And what else? I write poetry.
Yeah.
I compose a bit of music and also I paint.
Yeah, you've got some of your really nice paintings behind you there.
Yeah, thank you very much.
The one on the top left, I recall that. Did you bring that to a gig recently? Were we talking about that painting at a gig recently? That one on the top, my left. So you're right. Yeah.
That's the red dot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably, I can't remember. Was it last year, April in Berlin?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to paint. And also this is connected to a poetry song of mine, Into Sunclow. So,
okay.
So I like to express myself on various levels.
Nice. So are your paintings and your poetry connected? Do you write a poem for every painting or paint a painting for every poem?
No, not really. But this particular is connected to Into Sunclow. And I mean, this title says it all. You can see a yellow kind of dot in the middle and with gray areas around it, so it kind of draws you in. But no, I'm not. Maybe sometimes I write poems, and then look through my paintings, and I think, oh, that could go along very well. Kind of is connected with that. But I'm not planning that. You know,
okay.
that I paint and then have a poetry or song connected with it.
And you release this stuff under the name Sophie T?
Yes, that this is my alter ego.
Yeah,
Sophie T.
Yeah. Sophie T, yes, Sophie T.
It's good to have an alter ego. And where can people have a look and listen to some Sophie T stuff? Whereabouts online?
Yeah, well, on all of the usual social media places. So I use Bandcamp, and by the way, today is Bandcamp Friday.
Yeah.
Give me all your money. On Bandcamp, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, and recently I'm very active on SoundCloud.
Oh,
okay.
I try to avoid that platform, but now it's giving me a lot of feedback, a lot of people interacting with me, and that's also quite good to connect with other people you would never meet in real life. That's also good.
We've never used SoundCloud, actually. We've never, so when you say people are giving you feedback, people that you don't know, like just, and
it's kind of, when you get likes, it's like the dopamine or dopamine.
Yeah.
Budget is like, and kind of you can get emotionally attached to that or dependent.
For sure,
yeah. And then you feel like very, very, very bad when you lose a follower or when people don't like your stuff. But at the moment, there's so many, and I think it's also a community spirit where people appreciate your stuff. There's never ever a negative comment, like on YouTube or so. Oh, I also on YouTube.
Yeah.
And they appreciate your stuff and they repost your stuff so that their followers can have a listen. And that's how I recently got many, many feedback back. And I also, of course, listen to their stuff and also look for my kind of music where I could connect. And that's also a good thing, because I thought SoundCloud would be the bad thing. But on that, in that case, it's really good. It's better than Instagram.
Yeah.
Post about Bandcamp Friday and no one cares.
Yeah.
Or Facebook. I don't know. Facebook is dead since a long time. But yeah, you need to be present online. And I was just talking to Chris that at the moment I'm not performing live on stage, and I think that's the best way to get people, or to present your art to people, and then they will check you out. And it's also quite sad that we are all dependent on social media. I think it's that everything has a good or bad side, but yeah, it's only to do all the online stuff. I think that won't help online, right?
Yeah, it's necessary to be online, and it's a minefield because you just throw stuff out there, and you might have, like we have, thousands of followers, and you know, who knows how many people see that stuff. Who I really just don't even care anymore. Really, I never did care that much, but yeah, I agree that doing stuff live is the best way. I mean, when was the last time you did a live performance?
Well, it was last summer in Berlin. I spent some weeks in Berlin, and then I had a poetry reading with a poetry group that was really, really good. Nice. And and a lot of people came and to listen to our poetry. That was really good.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think you need to be in the right place and meet the right people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then when I met you, for example, in Manchester, for me, it was the best time in my life. Okay. And I was really brave enough to step up to you, Paddy, and say, hey, you need some vocals. I would never do this in Germany. And so, and then it's kind of an experiment, and then, see what happens. And
nice. So remind me again of how that happened. Because I
remember. Do you know Will, the trumpet player?
Of course.
Yeah. And
yes.
Hello to Will.
Yeah.
He was friends to one of my flatmates or housemates back in Manchester, in Charlton. And he said, hey, there's a house party, come along, there's a band playing. And then I went there with friends, and you were playing in the basement.
Okay.
And I think it was in Newham. I can't remember which part of Manchester. And it was you, Chris, and Marlene. I think that's it.
No, there must have been more.
Dell must have been there as well.
We were all drunk, and then I was so I don't know, electrified by your music or your sounds. And then at that time of my life, I was very active writing stuff. And then we met, and I think Will introduced us. I don't know. And then I said, you need a vocal. You need some vocals. Then you invited me to Saki Bar. Do you remember? That was my
That's
very
right.
first show.
Yes. Yeah.
And and then it got out of hand.
So
I think that show was when you did the Deadbeat.
Yes, exactly.
The first track on Deadbeat Disco in Paper Error Shocker on Science and Industry.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, and then it got recorded, and then there was this beautiful tape. And that was the very amazing time in my life, because you don't expect anything. You could have said no, crazy girl from Germany.
No.
But it all worked out well, and then it's like that's how it should be. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember we did a few amazing gigs. One in particular stands out in my mind when we played at the Mill, and I can't remember the band that we were supporting. I can't remember who else played, but the Nod show was basically a drum machine with a drum machine on the stage, you on the stage dressed as the devil. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember.
And you were like, you were the only person You were the only person on the stage dressed as a devil, and the rest of us were in costume, but we were just walking around the crowd playing various acoustic instruments and just like trying to get in people's faces and weird people out. And I remember that gig being like really, really, really fucking good. It was like it was more like than like a sort of average show. It was definitely more like a performance piece. And you were the devil, and it was like something from the tarot, really. It's like you were the devil and we were your like imps, your like sort of slaves, sort of wandering about, kind of causing havoc whilst you just fucking laughed at the chaos that was happening. That was a really cool show. So we did the Saki show, which turned into Science and Industry. Well, part of it turned into the introduction on Science and Industry. Yeah. We did that Islington Mill show. What other shows did we do together in Manchester?
In Manchester, I think it was only at Islington Mill. And I think it was New Year's Eve, but you weren't there, Paddy.
Okay, yeah. I remember that one. I was in Morocco.
Yeah.
And there was one more show that we did as a kind of stripped down 4-piece at Islington Mill as well. Del on the drums, me and Chris on guitar, and Marlene on bass. And it was really stripped back improv, jittery, scattery guitar stuff. And it was that was an amazing gig as well. In fact, both of those, that show, there's a little clip of that on YouTube somewhere. There's definitely a clip, maybe like a 2-minute clip of that on YouTube. And that was another really, really good show. I don't think it got recorded. I'm not sure if it did. And then the other gig that stands out in my mind is the first time we played Berlin at that really weird place.
You mean the
White Trash.
White Trash.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, the old White Trash. They moved to other address. Yeah. I remember. It was so cool because I think I was just in the audience.
Yeah. And you had just moved to Berlin, hadn't you?
I just moved, and then you just asked me, you want to come on stage? Yeah. And that was really cool.
Yeah, you joined us for a version of Tony's First Disco. Yeah, I remember. And you were on fire that night. We were just fucking jumping up and down on the stage, having a good laugh, really.
Yeah.
I think there's a clip of that. It might be that show. It's one of the shows we did anyway. There's a clip of that in the They Live video.
Yeah.
I
think that can be found on YouTube as well. That White Trash, a section of that White Trash gig can be found. Yeah, that was a fucker of a gig because it was such a good gig. And then the next morning we came to collect our equipment, and my fucking guitar had been stolen. My favorite guitar. Yeah, it was gone, and I was gutted. I was absolutely yeah. But there you go. But that was a weird place, wasn't it? White Trash. What was it called? White Trash fast food or something?
It's like an old Chinese restaurant, wasn't it? I think.
I think so.
Yeah, where you'd have like sort of S&M shows going on while people were eating their fucking bean burgers or whatever. And I remember the staff. It was obviously policy for the staff to be wankers. It was like the bigger a wanker you were, the more tips you got, or something like that. It was really strange, really, really fucking strange.
They had a tattoo parlor in there as well, didn't they?
Yeah,
downstairs.
I remember at that time thinking, though, because it was it wasn't our first gig in Berlin, actually. I'm lying. It wasn't our first gig in Berlin. But I remember at that time, it was probably one of the more sort of better paid, better attended gigs that we did in Berlin. So it felt quite cool to be there.
Did you play with us any dates in Leipzig as well?
Yes, I in Leipzig.
Oh God.
This was like a real no big drums, like a silent gig.
Yeah. In the bike shop.
Dr. Selsam's. Dr. Selsam's.
It no longer exists.
Really?
Yeah, but I remember that it was a bike shop and a cafe and a bar.
Yeah.
And it back then it was my living room, kind of.
Yeah.
And every night to meet my friends, and I remember it was so smoky in there.
Yeah.
That if you didn't smoke, you were a smoker. And this gig, this lo-fi gig. I remember that.
God, we were there. It was pretty much our living room too for about a week, because I think we stayed there for a week, because it was at a time when we were touring and we didn't always have gigs. So we just like would land somewhere and be like, can we stay for a few days? What was the guy's name?
It was Alex.
Alex. Yeah. He was very, very accommodating, a very, very nice chap. And very accommodating, and he kind of gave us, like, we got to stay in Leipzig, and I remember we went swimming we went to the lake there, and we all went for a swim and got to explore Leipzig a lot, and it was amazing. And I remember it was the first time I ever had a vegan kebab from that kind of, I think it must be kind of famous. Maybe it's not famous, but it was a vegan kebab shop, and it did the best chips, the best fries I've ever fucking had. And at the time, having a vegan kebab was novelty. Nowadays, you can't go outside your front door without fucking banging your head off a vegan kebab or something like that, you know. But in those days, a vegan kebab was like, holy shit, what are they making this shit out of? Like, but Leipzig was amazing, actually. I really like Leipzig. So I thought Leipzig was like your hometown.
Oh, no. That's where I studied.
Okay.
University, but I was born in Weimar, the famous place in Germany.
What did you study in Leipzig?
I studied English, Russian, and linguistics.
Wow. So do you speak Russian?
Wow.
No.
Yet. No, I mean, Russian is really, really, I mean, when they say German is a complicated or difficult language to learn, then 10 times it's Russian, I guess.
Okay.
And it takes you 1 year just like have a basic conversation. And but my subject or my main focus was literature. So Russian literature and English literature, and especially English poetry. And it all kind of, I remember I had a really, really good teacher at a university, and it was a really good seminar, and she gave us so like the freedom you could have at university. And then there was one assignment to present a poet, And usually in university, you have like this dry academic language, but she said, you can do whatever you like. Paint a painting, whatever, shoot a video. What did I do? I kind of made a video with Stevie Nicks. I don't know, and not Stevie Nicks, he's from Fleetwood Mac, but Stevie Smith. Sorry, not waving but drowning. And that's Stevie Smith. Not waving but drowning poem, and I said it.
Of course, yes.
And that was my assignment, and that was so amazing. And I remember that she was the one who kind of encouraged me to get out with my poetry. And it was during university that I did this Erasmus exchange and went to Manchester.
Yeah, cool. And at that time, there was a bit of a scene in Manchester, a bit of a poetry scene. I don't know if there is now, but there definitely was then.
Yes, and also I went to some poetry slams, by the way, in Manchester.
Yeah. So when you went to these poetry slams, do you remember meeting people like Space Ghost? Oh, a guy called Owen O'Connor. Does that ring a bell?
No, not really. Sorry.
No. He was a guy that went to all these poetry slams, and he had these like giant rolls of like giant paper, and he would just unroll them, and they'd be like the length of the room.
Wow!
He would just be reading off them really fast. Let me think. So, did you ever meet somebody called Lauren who used to do a poetry night called Paradox in Manchester? Was that the time when you were there?
No, I was
Okay.
there.
So you were probably there just before sort of Paradox kicked off, because that at one point that was kind of like the poetry night in Manchester, and she would have it at places like Fuel. Do you remember Fuel in Withington?
Yes, yeah.
Remember
Fuel
this
Cafe.
place?
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember.
So she would have poetry slams there and in the Sandbar. So maybe you were there just before that time, but I remember there was still like a lot of poetry happening because there was a lot of open mic nights, and there was a hell of a lot of poets at these open mic nights, which was kind of what made them good, actually. You know, because open mic nights are usually pretty shit in regards to just guys
Don't tell me about poetry slams. I'm not a big fan, sorry.
Really? No, why? Why aren't you a fan of poetry
No, I mean,
slams?
this is kind of this. I mean, I don't want to sound arrogant or so, but I do other stuff. I do other stuff, and poetry slams are really big in Germany. They're really big, but to me, they're quite it's to entertain people and not to present poetry like.
Okay.
All right, but I remember with from the crazy madhouse on High Lane.
What, Charlie
And his dad, Dave, and Joe, two Joes and Aaron, and Dave. Or we, as a house, we organized a poetry night at an old lady's place, and there were some few people coming by, and they were singing, you know, my house it's about musicians, and also I recited some poetry. Maybe it was the same woman. I can't remember her name, and she passed away.
Oh,
I don't know. I need to ask.
Her name wasn't Carol, was it? Carol?
I can't remember her name. Sorry.
Was she like a local poet who was quite eccentric?
Yes, she was a local poet.
Yeah, and she used to just basically go around all the bars and all the cafes and just give people her poetry and just sort of go in and recite.
Carol Batton.
She was very
Maybe.
Carol Batton. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it has to be her. It has to be her.
And she passed away. Yeah, and it's
yeah.
also quite political. So involved. Yeah, maybe
it was Carol. Yeah, it was Carol Batton. Yeah. Wow, I forgot all about her because she was like somebody that was always around.
Mm-hmm.
And a lovely lady, very eccentric, but very lovely, very approachable. And yeah, wow, yeah, that was a character.
Hello, I hope you're enjoying this snippet of Gnodcast. For access to full episodes, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/In Gnod We Trust. For less than the price of a coffee, you can get full episodes of the Gnodcast, access to Gnod Archive, where exclusive material will be added regularly, early access to releases, and a free digital album when you sign up. Gnod bless.
So how long were you in Manchester for?
Well, only 6 months, but to me,
6 months. Holy shit! Really?
Like 10 years or so. Yeah.
Okay, now so you packed a lot in for those 6 months. Then you did a lot of stuff.
I had 10 minutes left, right? Yeah. So everyone was involved in creating music or art in my house, and that's how I kind of I was like in the right place, as I said before. And met the right people. Yeah, it felt like 10 or 20 years, but it was just 6 months.
So do you feel like your time in Manchester had a massive impact on what you're doing now? Like still?
Absolutely. I think without that, I would not met guys like you. I would not have the courage to ask people, and then would write only for myself, maybe. Yeah, that helped me, and I realized, but I honestly at the same time I really love it to expose myself. And like I said, my alter ego Sophie T, she's not the same as me, you know. So it's like it's good to play also with different characters.
Was that your first time like on stage?
Yes, it was my first time.
When you performed with Gnod. Wow.
Yeah. Was my first time.
What an honor for us, really.
Yeah. For me.
Yeah. Oh fuck! I just fucking remembered the other gig that we
Okay.
did at the
Yes.
funk house
Oh, that
in
was
Berlin.
amazing as well.
Oh,
Now
right. Yeah.
that was a
Oh.
show. That was a
I mean, that
fucking
building
show.
is wow, like a
Yeah.
cathedral.
It was absolutely wild, wasn't it? So there was you on the mic. We had Utku Tawil on drums, on like modified crazy noise drums. We had Aidan Baker from Naja playing, I think, flutes and guitar. And we had fucking hell, what's his fucking name now? God,
Levy.
Levy from Hall of Fame.
Levy,
Yeah.
Levy.
Levy.
Yeah.
Hello to Levy.
What's his artist name?
It's Levy van, his Dutch name. I want to misspell it. Oh no, it is. Yeah, I remember. Flux Widely.
That's it, Flux Widely. Yeah. And what he brought to the show was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And that was a wild night. That was a wild show, and it was particularly fucking insane for me because I had got a flight from Manchester to Leipzig. I think I could you fly into Leipzig? I can't remember. Maybe it was Berlin. What am I talking about? Because it was Berlin. Flying into Berlin, and the flight got delayed in the air. So we were in the air for Leipzig or some other airport. And while all this happened, I don't know, I must have had an episode or a panic attack. Something happened anywhere where I just came out on this, like, I had some kind of like stress reaction where my whole skin broke out in like a rash, like eczema. And I started to feel really sick. I think it was just like some kind of stress reaction. I don't know. I actually don't really recall. But I remember then landing at this airport and being like, what the fuck am I going to do now? I'm like 2 hours away from Berlin. What am I going to do? And luckily, some guy just said to me, do you want to jump in a cab with me? Don't worry about it. My company, the company I work for, is going to pay for it. So just jump in. So luckily that guy took me to the hotel where I was staying in Berlin. But then I was just up all night with this weird like thing happening and just stressing out about the gig. And I remember just being like a massive stress. But then when we did the show, and it was like I was going to pop, but the show just completely like expelled all the fucking negative on a massive high after it, because the show was so good. And I'm really gutted that show didn't get recorded.
Yeah, there's no video, nothing.
They said they were going to video it and we're going to send it to us, and nothing happened. And I'm really disappointed about that, because it was a really, really fucking wild, interesting gig.
I remember there was one guy with a camera.
Yeah,
kind of chasing me and you all the time. Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, wankers.
What festival was it? Do you remember what festival it was called?
It was like from a Russian techno club.
That's right. Yeah, it was. It was a Russian. It was a Russian crew that had taken over the funk house in Berlin.
And it was like a 24-hour rave or something. Then like the massive bidding. And I remember I was walking around and then I lost you, and I kind of got lost because I didn't know where I was, because this building is so huge.
Yeah.
Like a maze.
It was chaos. It was chaos. And actually, I remember the gig. I remember being aware that everything was kind of going fucking crazy. That I remember FERPA took like 2 hours and then they played for an extra hour. And I remember just like bumping into loads of other artists that were performing there, and everybody was just like, oh my God, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was supposed to play at midnight. And I remember it being a bit of a stressful setup for a lot of people. But I mean, that's okay. Chaos is okay. And it was kind of the perfect place for the chaos. I'm just really disappointed that we haven't got the video footage or the audio of the show, because it was one of them that kind of genuinely walked away from going, I think that was probably the maddest fucking show I've ever been a part of. And it's not been documented, but there you go. It's like that sometimes. At least we were there in the person,
and we have memories.
That's all that matters. Yeah, just about just like little snapshot memories because there was so many strobes and stuff happening.
Yeah.
My memory is just like a strobe, you know, just like, yeah.
And it was also great because, Levi, I've met Levi there for the first time, and now we are good friends. And we also did a painting collab that
Nice.
I would, during pandemic, I would send him a painting of mine, and he kind of did what he did on it and drew stuff, and then he sent it back to me as well. And
Nice.
now we are friends because of you.
Nice. Yeah. And he's such a good lad, Levi. He's such a good lad. He's one of the first people that we kind of really befriended when we first started to tour in Europe in 2009. He was like one of the first guys. Well, he was the first guy to book us, actually. Him and Bart from Slow Tapes were the first two guys to book shows for us. Two sweethearts, two really nice, good lads. And like, yeah, it's nice that in the end we actually got to perform with Levi in the end. I'm really happy about it. I would love to do it again, actually. Again, I just say I'm just disappointed that it's not been documented because it was so good. And Levi was giving it so much. He was fucking really, really amazing at that gig. And there's only a tiny little video. If you go on the Nod Instagram highlights reel, there is like a 50-second clip of us making noise with Levi just on the floor, just like scrolling. And it just looks frantic. It's like, oh my God, it's like a panic attack. You know, but it's amazing. So Annett, like what after you left Manchester, you went to Berlin? Or
No, I went back to, no. I went back to Leipzig because I had to finish my studies.
Wow.
And actually, my plan was to just quickly do it and then come back to Manchester. That was always my plan, but it didn't work out in the end because my study was really, really hard, and it took me more than I left in March, April, and I thought I would be back in summer, which was so unrealistic because I needed kind of 3 or 4 more years to finish my studies.
Wow,
so that never...
wow. Holy shit.
Yeah, I told my housemates to keep the room for me, but it's like...
3 years, 3 years later, and they're like,
3 years
back or what?
No.
Wow. And so, I mean, Leipzig at that time, what year was that? Around 2000?
Well, like where I met
2011?
Yes, well, I went to Leipzig 2005 and I left 2014. Wow. Yeah. And and then it
was quite an exciting place then. I remember Leipzig. It was like a bit of a ghost town.
Yeah, it was.
But things were starting to happen, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone had this pioneer spirit to kind of like, there were so many empty buildings, and you could like live on very low rent.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was quite hard to find a tenant or like in a flat share to when you move away. It was quite hard to find a replacement.
Wow.
Because the rent was so low, and there were so many initiatives, artists, music. It was really vibrant. Yeah. But now Leipzig has changed a lot, I have to say. It kind of, a lot of money got in, a lot of people with money, and gentrification also happened there. And now, I remember my last flat in Leipzig, the rent, they doubled the rent. And it's like, what the fuck? I'm sorry, but if you know that you could live only for 300 euros in a 2-room flat, and then now it's 600.
Holy shit!
And I think,
because I remember the last time that we played there, everybody was like, "Yeah, Leipzig is the new Berlin, yeah." And we were like, yeah, you could see it happening. There was like a super club being built, some big super club, and you could see that it was like definitely changing. which is, I mean, I'm just glad that we got to be there at a time when it felt really, it felt kind of deserted, but at the same time, it felt like it was bubbling, like things were starting to bubble. And that's an exciting time to be anywhere, isn't it, really? Just at the beginning of things, like,
Yeah.
and I fell in love with Leipzig. I remember when we were there, we were chatting and going, should we just stay here? Should we all just like move to Leipzig? Like, you know, I think we said that about most places that we visited in the early days, but Leipzig was definitely somewhere where it kind of thought, yeah, we could probably live here because, you know, we could do it. But of course, gentrification and over, you know, just, yeah, shit happens like that. I mean, it's like Manchester. When was the last time you were in Manchester?
Oh, 5 years ago. I don't know.
Yeah.
More than 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's changed massively. Even in the last 5 years, Manchester's really changed, and it's yeah. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't really know, because I don't really. When I go to Manchester, I do the same shit I always done. I go to Cabana, I have a curry. That's about it. No, I might go to the Pear Hat, which is a pub and venue in town run by some friends of ours, which is probably the best place in Manchester, I think. And that's about it. Go to the Mill, but I mean, the Mill has changed massively. Like, the Mill is just reopening now. Yeah, that's the nature of cities, really. They have to change and they have to keep growing. It's like, it's the bloody nature of capitalism, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
constant growth, you know. It's just the way it is. So yeah. And when you got and when you went to Berlin, how was that for you? Did you feel like you'd gone to the city, you know, the place where it was all happening?
No, honestly, no, because by that time Berlin was also quite gentrified and a lot of things going on, and it's kind of really a shame that when those things happen, that the creative soul of a city gets kind of tried out, you know, because artists, we are poor. we don't earn that much money. We don't want to. It's a lifestyle as well, or a philosophy. And then where do you live? Then kind of rehearsal rooms get shut down and rebuilt into office spaces or luxury apartments where companies invest, and then people have their pension to buy flats, yeah, you know, and make a lot of money. So where shall we live? So we are kind of the loser of the system, I would say, because they don't want us. I mean, it's nice for them to go to concerts and see art, but speaking of feeling unnecessary, like when you look back at the pandemic, you know, people like us, or like working in the creative sector, theaters, event companies, they were the last one to get money from the government, and I think that shows how important art is in a society.
Yeah. And they need the artists in that process of gentrification as well, because they need the artists to bring people to the area.
Yes.
You know, the artists make it
kind
cool.
of our fault.
The artists make it a cool place to be, and then they make it unaffordable for the artists to stay there and live there. Yeah. What I was going to ask you, Annett, is you're from East Germany originally, aren't you? Are you from the east of Germany? Did you grow up in East Germany?
Yes, I grew up in the GDR. I was born in the GDR, and yeah.
Can you remember anything from that time? Like what?
Yes, I mean, I can remember my childhood. I'd spent all my childhood in the GDR system, and I remember when the wall got tear down.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was 12.
Wow. Okay. So that's a good age to witness that stuff.
Yeah, I was not too young and not too old. Kind of where when you are older, like my mom or the generation of our parents, then they had to change their life completely, upside down, a new system. But for me, it was, I mean, we're always influenced by the western part of Germany, because my granddad, he was from the Rhineland, and so twice a year we got our family from the western part coming here. And also it wasn't allowed, but we watched also Western German TV channels.
Right.
But it wasn't allowed, and it was not allowed to talk about that at school or so. I remember that my mom told me, never tell anyone that you last night watched blah 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 this show. And remember, it was a dark time. And also we were indoctrinated in school via the Russian, and then the West is bad, and we I don't know if you remember, but in school we had to wear this uniform to become a pioneer, they said, and then follow the system. And I'm glad that I was only 12, because when you're older and you're conscious, you're more conscious or aware of things, of the political situation, and you want to live your life. Maybe you want to study certain studies and you are not allowed to, then it would have been a big problem. And my uncle, he was in prison because he wanted to flee GDR, and he was in prison. And but I think my mom tells me that he was released very early. And they said that he might have someone to help him, someone with power, and we don't know. And usually when someone is in prison, they also observe the whole family.
Right.
But thanks to that person or whatever, they got out of without any problems or difficulties. So, but I think I got a feeling that we got observed by the Stasi somehow. But yeah, that's. But I can only tell you from my kids' perspective. I mean, I had a wonderful childhood, and everything happened in private. There were big parties. The adults were partying really hard. A lot of alcoholism as well. It was really cheap. But on the other hand, when you want to buy certain products, they weren't there. You had to queue for fruits, bananas, and so on and so forth. It was a very oppressing state in the back in a.
So what do you prefer, communism or capitalism?
One of them. I mean, I prefer freedom, and freedom comes with a price. Good answer. I think freedom comes with a price. I mean, the communism also it's a good idea. It's a community. And you can have like kind of communism aspects in the community, to share, to take care of each other, and also to let other people live their life how they want to live. But every system, there are always people who exploit other people, or want to as soon as people have power, then no good things will.
It's the authoritarianism that tends to ruin it, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
In both systems.
In both, absolutely. I mean, in capitalism, you have the people with money, and in communism, you have the people who tell you, no, you have to stay in the state. You cannot say, like when at the moment we have war in Europe, and thinking about Russia, where you cannot even say the word war. And they oppress people, and they restrict their freedom. So
The other thing I was going to ask you is, you ended up in a band with Beatty, didn't you? Matt Beatty from Pigs. What was that like?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It was like a 6 weeks band. I remember it was this special not New Year's Eve gig at Islip Mill, and Matt was playing the drums. and he asked me, "Hey, we are looking for a singer. Would you like to do that?" And then we ended up in the basement somewhere in Manchester with Johnny,
Yeah.
me, and Matt. And then we formed the band, and it was really, really good because it was energetic, and and I also wrote the songs, the lyrics for them, and there was also a cassette. I think it was a time of cassettes or tapes. Yeah.
So that was you, Matt, and Johnny.
Yeah, with 3-piece band, and
Nice.
I remember we toured to what's it called, where you can hike in Britain, the wonderful hiking place,
The Lake District.
the Lake
Peak
District.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Peak or Lake District or so. And I remember we had a gig there at a birthday party, and there were only 1 or 2 people watching us play. But it was super fun, and
Was it in Kendal? Was it in Kendal?
Maybe I can't remember the name of the town, but it was.
What was the name of the band?
The Crank.
Yeah. So I believe that's probably still online, is it?
No, unfortunately, someone put the video down. There was a video to our one song,
But
and it doesn't exist anymore.
Is it not on Bandcamp? Is it not on Bandcamp?
I don't know, maybe, but there was a video on YouTube.
Yeah, I remember.
Filmed in the basement, and but someone took it down.
Did you have a MySpace page?
Well, I used to have one, but I can't remember my password. So
did Crank? I think that's the whole world, isn't it? Everyone can't remember the password or their email address that they signed up with.
Yeah. But MySpace, that was a wonderful time. I miss MySpace time.
Yeah, it was a good time. Well, I tell you what, I might have a word with Matsy then and ask him if he still has those recordings.
Yeah, ask him.
I don't know. How would you feel about maybe sharing a couple of those tracks with some of our patrons on our Patreon to give some context to the podcast so that people could hear your stuff, and obviously we'll be putting links on the YouTube on the podcast so that people can check your stuff out as well.
Thank you.
We'll do that.
Poetry and painting. Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah,
but more painting than poetry, to be honest.
Did you publish a book a couple of years ago? A few years ago?
Yes, a poetry book with a collection of my poems, drawings, and also photos. And there are only a few left.
I have a copy of it.
I have one as well.
Yeah.
We're just trying to look for it then. I'm sure it's right there.
Yeah, that's I should collect poems and do it again.
Yeah.
But it was really hard.
There it is. Yeah.
But I learned how to bookbind.
I always keep it by my side.
What's it called, Chris? What's it called, Chris?
It's called Poetry and Sophie T.
Yeah, nice. Are you going to read one out for us then?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
pick a random one.
So this one's called On the Train.
Or maybe a German one.
A German one. Oh God.
Yeah, on the train. Yeah, read that.
Don't do it.
On the train, in motion, in transmission, sky vast, land endless, passing by untouched. You make me cry golden tears down my cheeks. Letters you fill, each by each, with overwhelming meaning. Deep inside, my heart was floating in a pool of gratefulness. Then the bliss. On the train, in motion, in transmission. No movement, silence. I sat still. From above, pouring emotions into my soul, blood is dwelling in my veins. Pure air clears my lungs. And all I see is you, the sky now wider than before, the earth in peace, a moment only, on the train, in motion, in transmission.
Oh, Chris, that was wonderful reading.
Yeah.
Thank you. I feel so honored.
Very, very nice poem. Very nice poem.
Thank you.
So was that, I'm going to ask you, but it sounds like you had a moment on a train where you were completely overwhelmed by the beauty and sorrow of the world or something?
Yeah,
Perhaps?
world or life, and maybe I had like a vision,
Yeah.
like a spiritual awakening. I don't know, maybe. And I love writing trains and writing poetry. That's the best combination you can do.
Free time to think, isn't it? It's a good excuse to just do nothing but think.
Yeah, nothing but think, and then maybe scribble down some words, or I don't know. And also, writing poetry is quite hard, you know. It's not about the rhythm or the beat. That can be easily done, but like the what do you want to say? And sometimes you don't know what you want to say, and then that's a secret. And maybe the readers will suddenly see it. Yeah, even and also with paintings and writing poetry. It's like one of my favorite German poet, Masha Kaleko, she said that writing poetry is like fishing for the electric fish, because sometimes you have like few lines, but that's not a whole poem, and then you have to work like when you want to sculpture, and it can take a long time. Sometimes it's like it comes out without thinking, and for example, Into Some Glow. I wrote it almost in one take, or in one, but then the last verse was missing, and then only 9 months later I added it. And
do you ever do any rituals to get into that flow state?
Well, first thing, I need to be alone in solitude, and maybe also like wandering around in nature. Nature, and then sit down and just like absorb the surroundings, and then suddenly I have an idea. And then I always have like a pen and a piece of paper with me, and then I'll write it down. And sometimes, often I have also like a melody or a beat in my head. And then I'll try to play around with a MIDI keyboard, or with Ableton, with the sounds, or field recordings, and then see what kind of is the best connection to kind of to make it round, or so, or to carry the meaning, so to speak. But that's
So the stuff that you were sending me, you sent me a few things on WhatsApp last year, some music with a guitarist.
Well, that's not my stuff.
I thought you were doing some poetry over it, though. Didn't you say you were doing some stuff over it, or?
No, that was the last piece, Into Sun Glow. But the rest was my partner in crime, Interpest. But we're really happy when I mention him. And we kind of do collaborations together, and then also we ask each other, hey, what do you think of that? And then we give feedback. And for example, Into Sun Glow, the beat and the sound you hear, it's from him. And also my other piece called Juniabend, I only had my spoken word track. And then he provided his guitar playing to it, and it's a wonderful collaboration.
Would you like to give us a rendition or a reading of one of your poems now, Annett?
The latest one?
Yeah.
Why not? Well, let me just open the file, and then an English or
whatever you want. Yeah.
Well, hang on. Why not do Into Sun Glow? I talked about this so many times.
Yeah. Then, let's do it.
Okay, good. So Into Sun Glow. I sweep the clouds from the busy roads. Fog is getting darker. Sun's a tiny light. Look out of the window. What do you see? Thousands lives moving into the night again. Stars are sighing underneath the shore. Sweet lullaby hummed for you and I. As the birds are dying slowly, all the thoughts in my head burning down like candles in a storm. In a quiet room, I sit at dawn of bleak memories. Lead me back to the place I was born, disturb my inner peace. As the rain keeps crashing down, wired words above the ground, interfacing souls to feel alive. Bound on darkened diamond moons, shape tomorrow's healing wounds. Sun will glow in the darkness for you.
Wow, beautiful.
Oh, that was ace.
Very
Thank you.
beautiful. I mean, that is a. It feels quite heavy.
Yeah,
it feels
I
very
cannot
heavy.
write happy
that one.
poems. It's always dark and bleak and gloomy and misery.
There's a lot of strong images there, like the candles burning down in the storm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, yeah, fucking hell.
Thanks.
All the dying birds.
The end of the world. Yeah, but the thing is,
but it's always the end. It's always the end of the world, Annett.
Yeah, it's always
the
I'm
end.
dying with
And it's always the beginning of a new world.
Absolutely. Yeah. The end of a poem is the other poem's start. Well,
that's beautiful. You should publish that. You should publish it. I would love to. I'd like to hear you said that your friend has set some music to that. So maybe we could get a copy of that from you as well and share, so that we can share that if you don't mind, obviously.
Yeah.
If you don't mind. So because I just think it's nice for our listeners to just have that bit of context and to really get to hear your stuff, and the way you do it. And lovely stuff. Yeah. Take notes, get it down. So tell me, so what's it like being in the Weimar now? Are you okay? Are you feeling settled, or are you still got itchy feet to move on somewhere?
I still got itchy feet. Well, I left Berlin for private reasons, and it was heavy times back then, but I needed to do it, and I needed this time or the years of recovery. Yeah. And of course, living in a village it was never my dream to end up here. I got no friends here. I'm kind of isolated, but it's my I want it that way.
Yeah.
And also during the pandemic, I mean, I tried to live in Brussels for a while, but
that's right. Yeah, I remember now.
But I couldn't kind of feel Brussels because of the pandemic. Yeah, and it was too much for me, also for my psychological health. So I left, and I'm thankful that I have this refuge here, that I can always come back. But of course, I'd like to move to a bigger city. And to kind of connect with other artists, because you have more possibilities. And but for now, I mean, Weimar is very close, and the cultural offer, it's really, it's huge. Yeah, they have a theater, there's the Bauhaus, there's also the Yiddish summer and the Kunstfest. Yeah, art lab, it's perfect.
What? The Yiddish summer. The Yiddish summer.
Yeah.
What's that?
The Yiddish summer. It's in every summer. They hold workshops. You can learn Yiddish or Hebrew. You can learn how to play an instrument and then make music. And they have like this festival week where they would present what they learned in the workshop. And that's pretty good because it's open air, it's all over the place, and it's really, really good and nice atmosphere, because Weimar is not a big city, and it's quite relaxed. And then you have the Kunstfest, with a lot of performances, and that's quite good. But the thing is, with the rents in big cities, and now the energy crisis, and it kind of prevents me from starting research where to live.
It's really hard these days to if you've not already got a place in a city to live, you know, whether it's owning a house or be like a long-term renter, it seems really daunting to try. And I speak as somebody who is like on the road a lot. I've for years now, I've not been settled. I'm moving back and forth between Ireland and England and Portugal. And I'm lucky in a lot of ways that I have friends who've got places for me to stay, you know, and affordable. Otherwise, I'd be fucked, you know. I'd be a 43-year-old with like, I don't know, I'd just be a homeless 43-year-old, really. Do you know what I mean? I'd be fucking, and it's quite mad to be in that position. But then again, I have put myself in that position and I'm okay with it. But it's like, it's a bit mad. Like, even I have younger siblings, you know, and here in Ireland, you know, for them, it's very difficult to see, for them to like make moves in the world, like to like get out and have their own place and like, you know, do and be like independent. It's like really difficult for them. I don't know why I'm going off on that tangent. I guess I'm just always waiting to talk about that because I just think it's fucking crazy the way things are now. This, you know, that a lot of young people are kind of trapped, you know. I hope it doesn't last too long, you know. I hope it doesn't last too long for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I'm a big fan of cities, but then you have to work hard to afford your rent, and then you give your whole life to the rent, and then you cannot make any art, or you need time. You know, we as artists, we need also time to breathe and do nothing.
This is why I live in a housing co-op.
You're in the right place, Chris.
Yeah, it's pretty good here. It's affordable. It's doable, you know. And there should be more of them. Really, there should be more housing co-ops. People getting together, getting a house, raising a bit of funds, all chipping in for the bills. It's a lot easier, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Back in Leipzig, there were lots of initiatives who kind of they bought houses. It was really cheap, and then they kind of renovated them, and you could live like for a low rent there. Because you also put work into it. But I don't know if they still exist or if they're still active in the way they were back then. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, they probably sold them and were like, yeah,
we're rich now.
let's move to Berlin.
Or the new Berlin. Let's move to the new Berlin.
Yeah.
What's the new Berlin? The last place that I heard was the new Berlin was fucking Lisbon. In Portugal.
Maybe.
That's what I heard.
Maybe it's a title each year to be given to any.
I think so. Yeah, I think
it'll be Berlin again in a few years.
That's how it works.
Berlin.
Berlin is the new Berlin.
Berlin is the new Berlin. Yeah.
New Berlin is the new Berlin.
Yeah, probably.
Well, Annett, it's been lovely talking to you.
Yeah, it was so wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks again for inviting me.
We'll do it. No, thanks for being here. And like, we'll do it again. Like, keep us updated on what you're doing and everything. You know, I do see what's happening on your Instagram. I don't always get to check everything out because the bastard thing about Instagram and social media is that it all happens on the phone. And I try to spend as little time as I can on the phone. And then because I already spend too much time on my phone, I don't spend a lot of time on my computer either, looking at the screen, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like it's hard sometimes to keep up with what everybody's doing, you know, because of this thing, you know? And I try to spend as much time outside doing other things so it's hard to keep up with what you're doing, but I do see it and I do check it out. But always keep us updated, whether it's via email or anything. Let us know what you're doing.
I will.
And after Yeah, after this, we'll like send emails around and we'll get stuff off you that you're comfortable sharing with our Patreon listeners, because I'm sure after this conversation, all of them will be really interested in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, you know, also I'd like to say thank you so much for your contribution to the Nod thing, you know. It was great. It was great times. And especially like that gig at Funkhouse, which was a wild gig, and the Deadbeat, the first show that you did with us and your first performance, I guess, that Deadbeat is like, it's a really, really, I don't know, like a lot of people have heard that. That tape was quite popular, those recordings, people like it. So a lot of people have heard it. And people have always, a few people have said, like, who's the person, who's the lady that's reading out the poetry? So
Yeah.
some of our Patreon listeners are probably, maybe there were some people wondering that, and now they get to finally know. So,
yeah, they're welcome to
good
promote
stuff.
my stuff. Yeah. And thank you also for being part of my life, and that you kind of gave me the opportunity and kind of you tried it out, and that was
No,
good.
It was
we're
meant
glad.
to be.
We're glad that we gave you
For
that
a reason.
opportunity.
Yeah, it was all meant to be. And listen, we're going to be in Germany in May. I can't remember where the fuck we are. I know that we're in Innsbruck. I don't know if we're is Innsbruck.
No, it's in Austria.
Oh right. Oh shit.
It's okay.
Well, I know that maybe we are in a few places in Germany. I'll find out the dates and I'll let you know. And if we're anywhere near you, and you're around and you're free and you fancy,
We're playing Desert Fest, Berlin.
oh, we're playing in Berlin again. If you want to come along to that show and hang out with us again, you know, please, we'll get you on the guest list or what have you, and be nice to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully Danny McAlinden won't be there again. Do you remember our friend Danny? Do you remember the last gig when we were driving off and we left you with Danny? And I was like, oh, poor Annett's fucking gonna have to be with Danny all night. He's a nutter. Well, he's a good lad. He's a good lad. Well, come here. Listen, we've got 30 seconds left.
Okay,
so
then.
Let's
Thank you very much.
And Annette, we really appreciate you and we love you, and thank you so much for being our friend and being a part of the wider Nod family. It means a lot to us.
Thanks a lot.
It means a lot to me. Yeah, thanks a lot, and we will stay in touch via email of the music. Sorry.
Cool. See you later.
Yeah.
See you.
See you later.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao. Ciao.